my ghouls and goblins. Welcome back to By Book and Bone, or if you're new here, welcome. It's been extra hot and humid here in Ireland, though by most people's standards it's probably a bit chilly. I've spent the week alternating between tutoring, minding my experiments, and piking hay into trailers, so I'm ready to sit back and talk about some books. We have our first subscriber request today. A friend of mine sent me this book, asking me to read and review it, and I, of course, agreed. The book I'm going to be reviewing is Confessions by Kanae Minato. It is a 2008 Japanese novel that was translated by Stephen Snyder. It's a bestseller in Japan and it spawned a movie of the same name. Just as a warning, I'm going to do my best to pronounce all the names throughout and all the words correctly, but I can't guarantee that they're not going to be awful. Her pupils killed her daughter. Now she will have her revenge. After calling off her engagement in the wake of a tragic revelation, Yuko Moriguchi had nothing to live for except for her only child, 4-year-old Manami. Now, following an accident on the grounds of the middle school where she teaches, Yuko has given up and tendered her resignation. But first, she has one last lecture to deliver. She tells a story that upends everything her students ever thought they knew about two of their peers and sets in motion a maniacal plot for revenge. Confessions is very different from the more common revenge plots that I've seen, and that's not a bad thing by any means. I found it to be really refreshing, with a great variety of points of view, and not always the ones that you would expect, which was really interesting compared to a lot of the other books that I've read. The weakest part of the book is actually the opening chapters, in my opinion, likely due to it being the section of book that's entirely dialogue. Yuko is standing in front of her class, explaining why she's leaving. So she's kind of giving this massive, several chapter long monologue. And it's great. It's a great concept, but I found the kind of run-on nature of the section a bit tough to sink my teeth into. And I kept having to go back and read paragraphs again. After that, though, I couldn't stop reading. The choice of character voices and the style of the delivery worked so well that you couldn't help but empathise with people who I personally despised. This doesn't include one of the killers, though. That was a specific choice by the author. The character's fundamentally an unempathetic head to be in. So it's definitely, there's one character that I didn't empathise at all with, but all the others, there was always a little bit that I couldn't help but kind of go, oh, I kind of see why that happened. I think my favourite characters are Mizuki and Naoki's mother. It was so interesting to see the events from their points of view. Mizuki is just a normal schoolchild who feels uncomfortable with the bullying following Yuko's announcement. And then she gets bullied herself, and okay, I'm not going to say too much about it, but I found her really, really interesting to be in the head of. Naoki's mother, I'm not actually sure we got her name, though if we did, I've forgotten. But she's like this doting mother, slowly drifting through denial and kind of going mad. She's like almost completely confined to the house. She was another one. Hers was a diary, and it was kind of it was like her daughter found the diary and is like reading it. It's really good. I loved that bit. The story itself is pretty simple and also pretty short, but it's drenched in the inherent complications of the characters. I loved reading a point of view that I knew was off, and that I'd then get to read another point of view to gain like the full understanding of a situation. Because it's like one character thinks that a certain situation, they think like another they think that they have a certain relationship with another character, only for you to get like then the full, from the other character's point of view, like the full understanding of the event or like their discussions. And it was just Minato did a wonderful job utilizing her characters in a way that you don't always see. So many point of view changing books alternate voices throughout, continuing a timeline, but may not show an event from different angles, so to speak. Rather, they'll look back at an event or a relationship to give their side. Whereas Minato kind of, like, sometimes it was moving the timeline along, and other times it was the same days. As I mentioned before, this is a translated work, and I can happily confirm that it appears well translated. Not all translations are equal, and some phrases can be lost or poorly phrased, but doesn't appear to be the case with Confessions. It's still really wonderfully written, and I think it gets all the points across. Confessions is a dark, almost claustrophobic suspense story that I cannot recommend enough. I'm delighted to have been sent it. Thank you very much to my friend. If you would like me to give you a shout out in the comments, let me know. It's a short book, so if you've ever wanted to read a dark Japanese mystery, they're also called Yamasu. I think that's how you pronounce that. This is a great place to start because of the relative short nature, and there's nothing that's difficult to understand, even if it's like some cultural stuff is obviously different from the West, or different, like, different countries in the West, but it's still very straightforward to understand. Just a few bits and pieces of housekeeping to discuss. I've started a sort of ASMR or quiet poetry reading playlist. I started it last week. Some of you may have already checked out If I Weep by Rumi. I'm going to be reading aloud snippets of books and poems more often, and I'd appreciate any feedback you have. The last thing I'm going to do for this video is actually read an excerpt of Confessions, so be sure to stick around for that. I'm looking forward to our next discussion. Bye! Chapter 2. The Martyr. Just a few months ago, I saw you every day, Yuko-sensei. But now I don't even know how to find you or where to send this letter. You stood there in front of us and told us that you couldn't trust the law to punish the boys who had taken the life of your little girl, that you were going to handle them yourself, and then you just disappeared. That was pretty thoughtless, I think. If you're going to do that to them, then you should at least stay and face the consequences. You should be here to see what happens to them. I decided you need to know that the rest of the story, what happened after you left us, and so I tried writing you a long letter to tell you everything. Then I realised I don't know where to mail it, or what to do with it, until I remembered a new writer's prize they were advertising in that magazine you were always reading in the teacher's lounge. Kids in their teens win these things all the time, so I decided to send my letter into the contest. It's a long shot, but who knows? One thing that worries me though, the magazine has been running a column by Sakuronome Sensei for months now, but it ended in April, so even if I win the contest and they print my letter, you might have stopped reading it. Like I said, a long shot. Anyway, I want you to understand that I'm not doing this because I want your help. It's just that there's something I have to ask you. It's this. Can you feel it in the air? Do you sense it in the atmosphere? Whether it's stale or fresh or stagnant or fluid? I'm convinced that the auras of all the people in any place got together to create the mood. I guess I'm super sensitive to this kind of stuff. Probably because I've never got comfortable with my own aura. Sometimes I feel like I can't breathe, and all I can think about is the feeling of the air around me. Anyway, if you had to pick a word to describe the air in our class after the new teacher came, you'd have to say that it was bizarre. We haven't seen Naoki since the day you left, when you told us what you'd done to him and Shuya, but he was the only one absent in B class on the first day of the new school year. Everybody else was there, even Shuya. I guess that was actually more surprising that he was there. Nobody said anything to him. We just stood around whispering about him, and he didn't seem to care at all. He sat down at his desk and started reading some book, but there was a cover on it, so I couldn't tell what it was. Not that he was acting tough or anything. That's what he does every day since we were in middle school. But that's what's so weird. Nothing seems to have changed. It was nice out and the windows were wide open. The air in the classroom seemed heavy and stale. Then the first bell rang and the new homeroom teacher came in. He's young and kind of bouncy or something, and he went right up to the blackboard and wrote his name. They've been calling me Werther ever since I was in school, so that's what I want you to call me too. We still feel pretty weird about it, but that's what I call him here. But don't worry, he told us. The name's the same, but that doesn't mean I've got the sorrows part. Nobody laughed.